Hey everyone, I wanted to publish a internal document that we use at Growth Engine X that I wanted to share with everybody else. And it goes over a lot of clay templates and use cases that we use, but also it just goes over like our normal just data infrastructure as well too. And so if you are trying to put together your own outbound campaigns, a lot of times there's so many tools to choose from. It could be hard to pick which one you're going to go with. And so this is how I teach my team how we source contacts and how we enrich contacts, and I hope it's useful for you as well. I'll post the document in the comments. And just one thing is you'll notice that we have shared tables here. I do this so that you can use the exact same clay table that we have in our clay account. You can just click on this shared table and then you can add it to your clay account, and then you could follow this loom on how to turn it into a recipe so that you could use it in your clay account as well too. So without further ado, let's jump into it. And so I would say our normal data pipeline for most of our customers is we are normally sourcing the data from Apollo, and then we're using Clay as kind of our operating system and our enrichment platform, and then we're sending the campaigns through Smart Lead or Instantly or whatever it might be. And so that's generally the case. Now, the reason why we use Apollo is because for a long time, Clay's LinkedIn sourcing data wasn't as good as Apollo's, and today I feel like it goes back and forth. Sometimes Apollo has a better search, and sometimes Clay has a better search. Really, it's very easy for us to just keep track of this is a customer's TAM, this is the TAM we've already used, this is the TAM we haven't used already, and we've already put it into a Clay table. Let's grab more. So that's the main reason that we use Apollo. We are currently considering maybe not using Apollo and then just using Clay for everything. But from a workflow perspective, it's not there yet. And we just need to evaluate that. But I would say for the most part, we're doing this workflow here. And then you could see I made this shared table here. This can take a CSV export from Apollo, and then it runs it through email cleaning, name cleaning, company name cleaning, and then it's got like a smart lead integration at the end. It's just the template that we just use to start all of our campaigns. We use that template. We just make a copy of it, and then we get building on our clay tables. And so then the other thing I just wanted to show, and I'm not sure how I can really show this, is that yeah, it's a little small. I'm sorry. The other times that our data pipeline will change is if the thing that we need to source about the list has changed. And so we will still use Apollo, but sometimes we'll like get a list of Shopify stores from Built With, and then we'll take those domains, upload those domains to Apollo, and then find contacts in Apollo. Or we'll build a lookalike list using Ocean, or we'll use the SAS filter in Crunchbase, or we'll use Panda Match to build a list, or we'll manually scrape things, or we'll use store leads. Whatever it might be, we always take those domains and then we find the contacts in Apollo. And so then we just either we include it as a list of companies by domain over here, or you could also just import the accounts if it's over 10,000 as well too. And so anyway, that's just if we can't source the data straight from Apollo, or we need some other filter that's not available in Apollo from a firmographic standpoint, we will use whatever other platform we're going to use, take those domains, and then upload them to Apollo, and then you can name it and like all that other stuff. And then sometimes we will source contacts from Google Maps. So if a company doesn't have a good LinkedIn presence, then we'll use D7 Lead Finder, Google Map Scraper, Clay, Google Map Scraper, JWalk.io, or whatever it might be. So if we're looking for a list of plumbing companies, we'll use these softwares. And then we'll use our local business lookup table to find the owner's information. If they don't have a LinkedIn presence, we're not often trying to figure out the chief marketing officer of the company. We're just trying to email somebody at the company because oftentimes they're small and whatever it might be, and they don't have a LinkedIn profile. And so anyway, we already have that workflow built in, and it's all just in there. And then sometimes we'll use Sales Navigator. We're currently evaluating Crust Data to do this, but we're confirmed that exportlists.io does this really well, and so does Scrapely. And so sometimes we will get the data from Sales Navigator, and then we'll still push it through Clay and everything. So just large overview of our data pipeline is most of the time we go Apollo, Clay, Smart Lead. Sometimes we will use a different platform to find the data, and then we will go different platform, Apollo, Clay, Smart Lead, or then we'll use Sales Navigator, Clay, Smart Lead, or then we'll go Google Maps, Scraper, Clay, Smart Lead, and yeah. So anyway, then just one SOP that my team oftentimes needs to be able to do, especially if you're scraping Google Maps or something like that, is to be able to take company names and then use domains and turn them into domains. And so the Clearbit integration in Clay is really good for this, but we also created our own Clayagent to be able to accomplish this as well too. And so this is just a custom waterfall that you'd be able to save as a recipe, so that if Clearbit doesn't get it, we use Clayagent to be able to get it. So another task, and so this isn't so much a Clay task, but another task that people sometimes will ask us for is they'll say, "Hey, I've got this list of business email addresses. How can I find job titles of these people?" Well, so Apollo actually does this for you for free. And so we actually just got this request from a customer today. And so like this is a little bit of a Clay tutorial, but this is also my internal team's SOP on how we do things. And so we just use Apollo to figure this out. You can just import a list into Apollo and then you're good to go. Just don't import like info at or like at gmail.com emails. And you're going to be good to go. So if you ever wanted to enrich a list of business emails for that person and their company enrichment, Apollo's got it. I think Contact Out has this as well too as a part of their API. So it's just another alternate route. You could also use Clayagent if you at least have the name input, or you could try to use Clayagent with the email address and just explain to it that it's going to, the username is going to be similar to the name and the company and the domain and things like that. But normally we'll just use Apollo to just get this data for ourselves. And now this is our data. I call it a data dictionary for just how we find the different data. So we're going to split this between company data and people data. So first off, we have web traffic enrichment. Whenever a customer asks us for web traffic, we don't have a paid tool. We just scrape SimilarWeb for it. So this table, all it's doing is it's just set up to be able to clean the domain in our input. It creates a SimilarWeb link. We scrape it with Zenros. We're huge fans of Zenros. Everybody should have an account. It's just such a superpower having it in Clay. And then it's just limited by Zenros concurrency limits, but that's just how the cookie crumbles. You'll get the output of the web traffic, but you can get anything else from it as well too, because it has all of the data from SimilarWeb. So whenever we're asked to enrich a list with web traffic, SimilarWeb is the way that we go. Then, if we're ever asked to create a list of companies that have recently raised, or we're asked to enrich a list of companies that have either raised, then we do a couple of different things. And so, whoops. So, if we need to source a list, that means that we're going to go to a platform and we're going to generate that list with their filters. And if we need to enrich a list, then we oftentimes will scrape it with Zenros with Crunchbase, which you get access to right here. Nope. And so I was just seeing if there was any other ones. And so we normally will source a list of fundraised companies either by using the native Apollo filters, by using Crunchbase, or by using Owler. And that's usually how we get access to all of those. Um, and so, yeah, that's just generally when we're sourcing this company, this is how we're getting it. But we will scrape the public pages on Crunchbase with this integration. I'm not going to go over this right now, but you could just click it and it's completely done for you. You can just use this. You will need a serper.dev API key in order for this to work, because it's not as easy as SimilarWeb. We use Google first to find the page, and then we push out and we use Google first to find the page, and then we scrape it with Zenros after that. All right, and then sometimes, so Clayagent is also really good at finding this information. So sometimes we'll use that, and then we also have a ZoomInfo one that you can use as well too. That if you want to scrape ZoomInfo, you can get that. ZoomInfo's got phenomenal. Actually, Crunchbase and ZoomInfo public pages are amazing, and they've got a lot of really great, awesome stuff. And so I would definitely check those out. Here I include that you can scrape Crunchbase or Owler with this Chrome extension. I think everybody should have Instant Data Scraper installed. So anyway, like I said, you can source from Apollo, Crunchbase, or Owler. And then we will find companies using technologies. Again, you could source this or you can enrich it. You source this with builtwith.com and you can enrich it with builtwith.com or predict leads. We also have our built with scraper right here if you want to take advantage of that. This is powered by Zenrose again too. And then if you need to source a list of people who are hiring, we will oftentimes use find open jobs inside of Clay, but then you could also use Appify to scrape Indeed as well too. And then you can enrich. I just don't use the Google Jobs scraper because I just find that it's just not accurate enough for us to be able to use. Another thing that customers will often ask us for is finding companies with certain employees. So we will use find contacts at company, the integration inside of Clay, to be able to do this. And we like find contacts at company will oftentimes find, just like if you need to find a company that has people who are hired internationally, find contacts as a company is really good for this. If you want to save on Clay credits, just use this as a don't save this inside of the same table. Save it to a new table and it won't use any Clay credits. And then you can just do whatever you need from there. This I unfortunately can't I think I've made a YouTube video on this, but it's too complicated to just give away the shared table because I honestly can't take questions about the shared tables. But if you want to find contacts with past company experience of current customers, I'm pretty sure I have a YouTube video on this. And all you need to do is you just generate a list of your people who are in your ICP generally, and then filter for all their past company experience, and then write all of those people to another table, and then do a lookup to see if they are have any of the same domains as your customer list, and then you can push everybody from there. Again, I'm pretty sure I have another video on this. You could search it up on my channel. I just can't really give the Clay template here. Um, for mobile phone numbers, we essentially just use Lead Magic, Nimbler, and People Data Labs. I don't think that there's any value in using a validation provider. What I think is more interesting is to use AI. I actually sometimes will turn off the conditional formulas underneath these waterfalls, and I'll use these to find as many phone numbers as I possibly can. And then once we use this to find all of the phone numbers that we can, then I'll use AI and say, hey, did any phone numbers come up multiple times? And then I'll use that as my phone validation because clear out all they're doing is they're just seeing if the phone exists. There's no like, yeah, I think this phone number is for this person, which I just don't find it to be a good use of money. This Clay table, we use this to find if somebody is employed by a company that Apollo thought they were employed by, and then we'll also know if they started their job in the last 6 months. And if you want to change that, you can just change it here. Don't put 6, put 3, and then you'll be able to look it up. So if you're looking for people who are newly hired, you can use this as a recipe, and you're going to get access to it completely. And then we have our own email waterfall. I'm not going to share our Clay table here just because we use the HTTP API to get access to Kit, and then we have Lead Magic, and I just couldn't change anything. What I would say though is we don't use the native Clay email waterfall for two reasons. One, once you know how the sausage is made for a lot of these email verification tools, you understand that you don't need to run 6 email verification tools. And two is if the domain is a catch-all domain, I'm just not going to send any emails to it. And if the domain is a catch-all domain, the waterfall might keep finding, like it'll say Prospio found it, but then Zero Bounce will say it's not valid, and then it'll move on and it'll keep charging you credits. So we just don't do that. And so the way that the sausage is made, if you are unaware, is so one, you can validate emails. So if you try to validate eric1 at growthenginex.com, that's going to be an invalid email. But if you try to validate eric at growthenginex.com, that's going to be a valid email address. And so what these tools are doing is basically everybody has the same 12 permutations of a name on a domain. Everybody's email address is like first name at domain, or first name dot last name, first initial, last name, first name. Like everyone has some form of those as their email addresses. And so essentially what these tools are doing is they're all just guessing, and they're seeing which email is valid against that domain. And then some of them that are doing catch-all email verification are doing some things where if you try to sign in, you might not know this, but a lot of people, when they're doing catch-all email verification, what they're doing is they're just figuring out, okay, is this a Google account or is this an Outlook account? And if it's a Google or Outlook account, they'll go to Google and they'll try to sign in automatically to that email address. And if you've ever signed in on Google, you know that if you enter an email address that's invalid, it'll just say, hey, this email doesn't exist. But if you enter an email address that is valid, it'll move you to the next screen asking you for the password. And that's essentially how they're doing this catch all email verification stuff. Another big reason that I like to source our data from Apollo, I mean, shout out to ZoomInfo. I'd love to do a deal with you guys if you guys are seeing this video. But ZoomInfo or Apollo do this part well, and I think everybody should consider putting one of them into their data stack because of this reason. So one reason to have Apollo or ZoomInfo in your stack is because some companies, they will have a public facing domain, but that is not where they send their emails. So for instance, Intercom is intercom.com, but all of their emails are intercom.io. And then Slack, their public domain is slack.com, but all of their emails are slackhq.com. Tools like Apollo and ZoomInfo that are feeding off of kind of the community's data. If you didn't know that, they're taking some of your CRM data, but you consent to that in the terms and conditions. And actually, I think that's a good thing from my perspective. So, kudos for them for doing that. They will find that and they'll make those distinctions inside of their platform. And I like that they do that. Another thing is like if somebody has a name such as Ann Page and at domain.com, right? And you try to permutate that domain, sometimes you'll accidentally get AP at something, and that's just their accounts payable email address, which turns into some problems if you just trust some of these email guessing providers. And so, anyway, I just wanted to throw that out there. Another thing that we are often asked, I love to filter this way. I love to find VPs of marketing that mention growth on their LinkedIn profiles or VPs of marketing that mention automation on their LinkedIn profiles or something like that. The way you do that is super simple in Clay. I shared the table. There's a really little known formula in Clay called Stringify that can take an entire output from your Clay table, and then it can just turn it into a single, well, I guess like multi-line text, but then you could search all of it and it's super useful. And so this recipe here takes advantage of that so that you can download somebody's entire LinkedIn profile and then say, do they mention this keyword on the profile? And that's essentially what it does. And then this is our local business contacts finding workflow, which I've made a video on that in the past. And then everybody should know how to use right to table in Clay. And so I would say this is basically our 101 training internally. We have another, but that's why I call it the data pipeline SOP because these are most commonly requested things from our customers. We have a lot more internal training about Clay that I mean I've posted a lot about it and things like that. There's not a whole like lot that I'm keeping anybody in the dark here. But as far as how we're doing a lot of our sourcing and how we're doing a lot of our list building, this is basically how we're doing it. I hope it's useful. Like I said, I'll post this document, use these shared tables, and yeah, this is just literally how we do things internally. And I just hope that you know um, it could help somebody outside. So